All right, we are live. What's going on, fellow traders? Let me get this tweeted out here. 1 second. What happened to that? Did I not tweet that? Okay, here we go. There goes that. Awesome. All right, well, here we are. So let's see. So I've got the S&P futures pulled up right here. So pretty interesting Sunday evening, right? Wouldn't you say? I hope everybody had a blessed weekend. And looking forward to the day, of course, tomorrow. So it's going to be a little bit interesting, right, going in. So let's just take a look at the futures have done so far. Let's kind of look at some price action. So we gap down initially, and then it flushes right away. Gives you an inside bar, and this is the 5-minute chart, by the way. It gives you an inside bar here, breaks it to the downside, holds this level. If I pull up, I've actually got some old volumetric levels. So if I go ES volumetric here, you can kind of see that some levels were, tested and held. So this is an older volumetric level. It was pretty big. It held, and then give you an inside bar right here. It looks like the bottom was precisely the same. So inside bar, and that broke to the upside and gave you pretty much a push to the top, give you kind of a little double top right here, and then finally, once you have like 1, 2, 3, 4 upper shadows followed by these other two, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Possibly 6 upper shadows, right? Red shooting star, and then boom, momentum shooting star that breaks through, some key levels. If I take out the volumetric levels and just go to the pivot levels here, which is subscribers got to see how to load the thing script on those. So we did that this weekend. So just to kind of a little benefit there, automatic, it automatically does it, for whatever ticker you put in. So anyway, that went push to the downside. It kind of held with a bit of a hammer here, but this is more of a bear flag. So let's see. Let me pull a bear flag up. Our little channel. They gave you a bear flag right there. Hello. Like this. Kind of broke, right? Confirmation bar, mini bear flag, and then push again to the downside. So if we look at where it's held here at the 2883, I'm seeing a level right here, right? But for the most part, not seeing. This could be a bear flag that it's working on right now. I don't know. So we'll see how nasty it is. Right now, looks like this 2893 level has got some resistance up here on the in the DOM, right? The depth of market, and so then the higher you get, there's more volume there is. So we're kind of in an air pocket right here, so it looks a little bit scary. So, but anyway, let's take a look. That's just we'll see where we end up in the morning. Anything could happen, anything could change overnight. So just something to look at. But it's down pretty far. So here's the futures right now. The S&P is down 57 points, the Nasdaq down 181, and the Dow down over 500 points right now. So pretty wild stuff. It's going to be interesting tomorrow. So you have to imagine that anybody who's long right now is probably gonna be interested in selling at the open, right? So that actually would give a good shorting opportunity right at the open. So we'll look at possibly doing that tomorrow. Most of the 60 anchors are probably going to be kind of clobbered, so we might get some fall through the downside on them though. So that's just something to keep in mind, that it might be like sort of a plop and drop tomorrow, right? So we'll keep that in mind. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at the SPX. Just kind of go through newsletter subscribers got in-depth analysis of this in their newsletter this weekend. So just kind of give a brief synopsis of that here. So basically, we're looking at the monthly chart on the S&P cash, and then we had the so basically going back to January, inside month came up, spinning top here, hammer continuation bar, and then a push to the upside. Now the month is just kind of trying to figure out what to do. So if we end up gapping down to 2900, this is going to be a so far a red bar for the month. I mean, nothing size wise, nothing really compared to any of these other months here, but except for this was a pretty big one. But we'll see what it turns into. The in terms of the weekly chart, right? This is, we like to analyze these multiple time frames just to kind of get a bigger clue, right? So here's your hammer, right, of the week. Didn't finish at the highs, but it's still it was Northern Doji, a little bit more than that, kind of gave a hammer there. I mean, you could argue that the wick was a little bit high, but for the most part, what you want to watch is this break of 2,900, right? So if we end up right now, the futures are 28.92. So chances are we're going to be below that. So this is going to be a break of a pretty big trend line. If you look here, if you use that as part of your trend, otherwise it was already starting to roll over if you moved it over here. But here it's going to gap below this trend line. That it's going to have some work to do if it's down here in the 28. 80s, right? It's gonna, it's already had, it might retest it, it might not, it might push and fill this gap here at 28.36, which we've been eyeing very closely here and in the newsletter too. So, in general, it had a pretty bullish pattern on Friday, right? I mean, it was basically essentially a Morningstar pattern, even though it wasn't a reversal pattern, right? Because we're not coming off of a downtrend. That's the only thing. Like if it like here's a Morningstar reversal because here we have a downtrend, red bar, real body is closed below that real bar. Also, it was by the 200-day moving average, closed way above the 50% mark of this bar, and then we have that nice move to the upside here. So now it's not. It's kind of like a Morningstar reversal in an uptrend. So it's kind of like but it still was a bullish day on Friday, so you would have you expected at least some continuation. There was the investment in Amazon by Warren Buffett and all other sorts of fun bullish stuff that kind of gave it a good day on Friday. So now we're gonna be it looks like we might even be gapping below this level right here, which could get some acceleration to the downside. So just caution is definitely warranted going into tomorrow, and definitely worth looking at potentially some short opportunities too. So real quick, just to review the price action. On Friday it was pretty interesting. So we had a big gap up, nice gap up, and pulled back to the R1 level, gave a nice push, and then just kind of started this nice, trend line to the upside right here. And so this is kind of what I want to get into today, is talk about using these trend lines to look at new signals. So I'll show that to you in a little bit, but let's just take one more look at the market here and just kind of see where we were at, kind of longer term perspective, right? So we had the the channel all here through 2018, and then the push down, test the bottom of the channel, and then retest, and then finally broke down, and that gave us this macro pitchfork level, which was all the way back from, what was it, like 2016. And so now we're just kind of using that as to gauge where we're at, right? So we have this congestion zone right here, right? From the all-time highs, and we recently tested that. But also there's this midpoint here, which is the midpoint of the median line and the upper part of the pitchfork, and that served as resistance, a couple times here, and then we're right back up at it. So, even though we hit all-time highs, right, it's still, basically the top of this channel right here. So if it looked like we were pivoting off of here, but the market doesn't like to go in straight lines, right? So it came back up, retested on Friday basically, and it looks like it's going to push to the downside and possibly fill this gap here. If it fills that gap here, I mean, it might consolidate a little bit more and then retest the bottom of this pitchfork. It might do it over a little more time and get all the way to this 28.18 before trying to work its way back up again. We'll find out as we move along. So, but we just have to be nimble and prepared for the different situations. So good stuff. Well, with that all being said, tonight, this week, and we'll see if how long it takes. If it takes us a little bit longer, if there's more ideas. Certainly there's a lot of chart patterns out there, but I want to focus this week's kind of technical discussion on chart patterns, and just to be able to identify them and just help with trading. So obviously they're good on long-term time frames, right? So we'll talk about things like cup and handles and head and shoulders and things like that, so you can see in the long-term time frames. But you can also use those intraday, all the same patterns that you'd use on the longer term time frames, you can also use on intraday time frames, and then combine them with your longer term time frame. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And today's discussion is going to be on the bump and run reversal. Okay, so what's the bump and run reversal? It's not like a hit and run reversal or a hit and run trade where you just try to get in and out as quick as you can to get some profit, right? Hit and run. But in this case, you're looking for a reversal, right? So in this case, a bump is basically like where it pushes way above a trend line and then comes back down. And the key is to use your angles, okay? So your angle measures. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom back. This is a 1 minute chart right here. I don't ever recommend trading off the 1 minute chart because it's so easy to get stopped out. But you can see patterns intraday a little bit better, right? Because see how it's all kind of consolidated. You can start to see movement a little bit better, right? So I want to show. I have an example here. This is back on May 1st, okay? And I'll show you what the bump and run looks like. So there's actually two examples of it here. So this is the first example. Okay, and so what you do is, and I'll start this trend line from scratch. So let me remove this. Okay, and so you could do this on the 1 minute chart. You could do it on the 5 minute chart. Whatever you're comfortable with. This is just in general, and then you can scroll back to the 5 minute chart and look. It looks just as fine on the 5 minute chart, but mine's a little bit cluttered. So the idea is when you draw your trend line, you want to pay note to what the angle is. So if you guys can see this pop-up box here, you see how it's kind of jumping around there? How if I go here, it's like, hey, I'm jumping around, right? Woo. Okay, so that blue box, so it has 0 days in it, 0 hours, 32 minutes, 33 bars, minus 0%, minus 0.03, and then see that angle? That's your degrees of like how steep the slope is of this bar, right? So if you go all the way up, right, you're going to be what? 90 degrees, right? If you go all the way to the right, you're going to be 0. If you go down, you're going to be minus 90 degrees. If you go this way here, you're going to be minus 90 degrees that way. So, well, actually, it would be, yeah. So your angle, yeah, this is okay. So it'd be inverted there. So, but typically we would do it this way, right? Because we would do it from here, right? So we're at the down angle. So really, this way is really the same as this way. So, okay. So that being said, no one draws backwards like that anyway. So, okay. So that being said, so we look for a trend line that's about 30 degrees. Okay, 30 degrees is kind of one of those numbers. So here we see we're starting a trend, right? We're kind of moving up here. So we have, let's just draw our trend line here. Okay, and I'm just going to extend through. I mean, obviously we know it's the future, but let's say we're here. Okay, let me just kind of do a sharp right edge on that. Okay, let's kind of look here to the right side of the screen. And so what happens is, all right, so here we go. We've pulled back. All right, now it looks like we're starting a trend. So let's say I've drawn the trend line here and extended it to the right. And so what happens is you want to see when the angle changes from 30 degrees or so, where it kind of jumps to like a 60-degree bump. Okay, so that's your bump. Okay, so here we go. We're going here. Oh, right there. So there's your bump. Let's take a look and see how that angle changed. So we were here. Then we went up here, and look at that, about 69 degrees, 70 degrees. So there's your bump right there, okay? And then the trade is, now obviously it would be nice to catch this trade, and you can do that, right? If you, like say for instance, you had drawn your trend line here, and you kind of came back and reversed into it, you could have taken that long, right, from 2950 to 2954, that type of thing. Or you could see that this is a 30-degree line that bounced to 60 degrees, so there's your bump. And the idea is you want to see it come back to your trend line there, and then see how it handles it. Okay, so if it breaks down, then that's your bump, and then your run is going to be to the downside. So bump and run. All right, and so we'll just kind of look. So does it bounce or does it go through it? Okay, well it pushed right through it right there. You can see that bar, and then getting some confirmation there, boom, like that, and then it gave you that nice move to the downside. Okay. So then you could cover, I'm sure a lot of people were covering in there, especially anybody who's knowing what the bump and run was. Okay, so that's that. And then we had this situation right here. So I'm going to remove this line. All right, let's kind of show. This is another. I think this turned into another bump and run. So we're about 25 degrees, 26 degrees. That's about 30 degrees, right? So I mean, you could have used this one. It's a little bit cleaner, right? That could have just been a tick below it. So let's extend that to the right now. Okay, and so we were 30 degrees, and then we move what? From that line up, that's about 80 degrees, but you can see here 60 degrees or so. Okay, so there's your bump, and let's see if it comes back to that trend line and what it does. Oh, came right back to it, pushed below it, tried to get back in. Now let's see if it continues to the downside. Oh, yep, there it goes. Oh, nasty. So there you go. There's the bump and run. So this was, let's see, this was the 1st of May. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the, I'm going to go to the May 1st chart here on the 5-minute with our levels that our newsletter subscribers all get in the private Twitter feed, as well as access to a spreadsheet where they can do it themselves and a think script where they can do it as well. All right, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to pull up the May 1st levels. Okay, so here's the May 1st levels, and then you can see what we had. So this was the first bump and run. So here, I'm just going to remove this. This is a trend line from the 5 minutes, a different drawing, right? So if I go here, okay, so here's your bump and your run. And what did it do? It broke through the prior day's highs. So we have this level here, the prior day's highs. So that kind of broke down. And what did it do? It went to the prior day's close. So that was a nice bump and run right there. And then here's your other bump and run here. It did the same thing. It retested the prior day's highs. It even tested the top here. It tested the R1, which is your daily resistance, and I think it was weekly resistance as well. So you had confluence here and guys, this was a double top too, right? Intraday that was testing a key level that it couldn't get over, right? And so here you can see very clearly it tried. It had a hanging man right here, followed by a shooting star pattern, which then eventually broke through what would have been the bump and run line, which is the trend line here, right? Okay, and so that eventually broke there through the prior day's highs, and then look at that bar right there, just nasty 5-minute bar to the downside, and then basically gave you this kind of double bear flag where it was in this kind of congestion zone of yesterday's close, the prior day's close, prior day's open, volumetric levels, daily pivot level. Finally broke the daily pivot level after this doji, and then gave you that really nasty push into the close. So that is the bump and run. So, and you can see when we combine it with multiple time frames, we can kind of see it a little bit clearer than just on the 5-minute, because the 1 minute, because the 1 minute can be pretty difficult to trade off of. It's easy to get stopped out of, so for the most part. So here, very, it almost looks, it just looks really clear too. We also broke through the cloud here too, but this is a huge push to the downside. And then this kind of double bear flag was just a little bit tricky, but because he had this nice big bar right here, which is a clear reversal bar, but then it kind of came right off of it, right? Came back down again. This was your finer bear flag, which then flushed into the close. So there's the bump and run. So we're going to go through different chart patterns like this, so you can start training your mind to see these intraday. When you look at your shorter term time frames, or even the 5-minute time frame, is still, I'd still consider it, just off of this too. But sometimes if you're looking at the hourlies, you kind of want to see what's going on within the hourlies. So if we go back to May 1st, on the hourlies. This is May 1st right here, this one, right? So, there's a couple moves there, you kind of miss a little bit, right? So, here on the hourlies, we like to trade breaks of it, like inside bars, for instance. So you could have traded this break here of this 1950, and that was the bump, right? So that was basically, you could have traded that off of the hourly, so this 2950. But sometimes it's hard, right, to pick, where a reversal is happening, right, off of the 60-minute, even though this did give you a shooting star pattern. But it was probably more like up here, right? And you could have caught more of this move than off of the 60. So when you're trading the 60-minute time frame, you can kind of look at the lower time frame and see what's going on the internals of these candles, and you can find those really neat chart patterns. And so we'll go through like some pretty popular ones, some good ones that are applicable to trade intraday. So hopefully you guys find that helpful, and that's pretty much all I have to talk about this evening. So at this point, if anybody has any questions about that or chart requests, feel free to plug those into the chat window. Try to limit it to 2 or 3 if Shirley's here. 5 is okay, and then we'll get through as many as we can. Try to wrap up before 10 o'clock so we can all have a good night's sleep and get rested for tomorrow while we try to figure out how to handle all these futures being down so low. So good stuff. Session, what's going on? How are you? Yeah, great weekend, man. I hope you did too. And La Machine Polonaise, good evening. Osama, what's up? Good evening. Yes, very interesting start to the week. Oh, Boeing is going to get just it's gonna be an interesting day tomorrow. We'll look at it at the 15 order, but I think there's gonna be so many because of the way everything was set up yesterday, right, on the daily, right? I mean, it looked bullish. I mean, it was pretty tough to. You had a hammer week, going into the week. The only thing that was ominous was the monthly so far, but the monthly wasn't complete. So I think there's going to be some folks that were swinging long over the weekend. They're going to get caught, and then are going to dump their positions, and then that could really flush it to fill that gap. So definitely be on the lookout tomorrow. Boeing's going to be pretty nasty with some bad news too. So we'll see what Boeing can do. We'll take. Hopefully there'll be a chart request on that later so we can pull it up. Mike, what's going on, man? Thanks for jumping in. Harvey, how are you? Yep, target, definitely. Thank you. This is definitely on our Positive Trends newsletter watch list, on the back burner, waiting for a nice gap fill to arrive. So what we want to do is, we want is the data to show up. Okay, so here we are. Looks a little kind of bright and crazy. So we had this nice pullback as it got Amazoned that tested the cloud and kind of came back in, and then it gave a decent hammer bar and just couldn't quite get over the 200-day moving average, gave an inside day, and that inside day broke to the downside. Okay, and then we had an inside day here, and then it tried to break to the downside, and then it kind of came back in as a doji. So at this point, I'm kind of observing how it behaves around the bottom of this cloud area, the 74.39 level. So let's say it chops down here, right? then it might start to get interesting. It might start to work its way up and start to break out of the cloud. And then if it does, I think this gap fill is going to be very, very possible on target. So it just didn't, well, the market, the Fed and all that stuff didn't really help the whole situation. But Walmart had the same thing and it ended up filling the gap. So I'm a little surprised that Target didn't do it. But like we said, sometimes because this got upgraded after it got knocked down too, and sometimes when institutions get caught, they will upgrade it, right? And then they sell off their positions, right? That's why there was so much volume this day too. So they're just kind of basically dumping, and so then it's kind of floating around here until they decide it's a good deal again, and then they start loading back in. So we had some pretty decent volume on Friday. We'll see if we can get a little follow through on it after we see how this market shakes off. Kind of these moves here tonight. So I don't know if they're gonna let it close under 500 or open under 500. The more if they do, it could be a nasty day tomorrow. So it should be pretty interesting. So, Call Saul, what's up? Yeah, man, great weekend. I hope you did too. CMG, let's take a look. Session. So CMG. In fact, I wanted to look at that too and see how its volume has been on this massive move up. So the only thing I'd be careful, the only thing I'd be careful about is these up moves now. Although nice, they're on declining volume, right? So this volume just keeps on getting lower as it's going up. So what that means is that, right, it's just sort of losing a little bit of interest, right? And then you're seeing these down moves are starting to get, look at that, this move here, this bar right here, bigger than average volume, right? And this down move here, bigger than average volume. So you're starting to see more volume coming into the selling side of it than into into the red days than into the green days. So just be careful with that. So it did have this epic move, right? We caught these pennants right here, and then I don't think anybody could have really expected that huge move, but the institutions wanted in here, and they just loaded up, right? So at this point, maybe profit taking, on some of these big volume bars here, but it does look nice. I mean, I don't know where it's going to open, but this big move here, this could be a nice pause bar and then a push to the upside. So unfortunately, at this point, just have to warrant a little bit of caution on it. So you could, if you wanted to, you could see like a bit of a broadening formation here. So you have like, kind of here. You kind of have this kind of going on, type of thing. If you ignore that other wick, but you could use that too. But it's just sort of, it might be kind of expanding sort of a megaphone type style. I think if it tests down here, it might then work its way back up. So it's kind of in a scary situation right here. But I would see how it handles that bar tomorrow. I imagine everything kind of gaps down tomorrow a little bit, but we'll see. So, Corny, what's going on? Good to see you. Glad you made it. And Session, Lulu. Yep, let's take a look at Lulu. Lulu is a tough stock to trade, but definitely worth looking at. On pullbacks. I mean, it had this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days down essentially, and then got a pop on Friday. So we'll see if it gets any follow through there. I mean, if it gets beaten up with the rest of the market, look at these levels here. This gap up level, the high. Was 171.45, so see how it handles that level. If it gaps down, that might be a good place to look for a bounce. Nudie Poo, what's up? XBit, let's take a look. XBit, interesting stock. So it looks like you've probably requested this one before. We have a couple fib fan lines here, so you can see. We've looked at that on the other chart, but let's just look at the candles here. I like how it's in the cloud. I like how it's constructed within the cloud. It had this huge pullback right here, right at these fib fan lines. Kind of broke out a little bit, then gave a nice bar. Wants to stay in there, it seems like, but it's got to get above these levels, right? So this 940, 950, and if it could do that, its 50-day moving average is 968. Then we would want to see it, get kind of constructive and pop out of this cloud, right? For for a long. It's got earnings coming up pretty soon. It's on the 8th, so just keep that in mind. So as to what I think it would do during earnings, I have no idea, right? Binary event, but. If it does pop on earnings, then we would look to see if it could get out of this cloud over 10.20. Then you get some institutions involved because they like to buy it. Some of them are only able to buy over $10, and then you could see some volume coming into it. So that does look interesting. So Session, CAT. So CAT was another idea. We looked at in the newsletter. This gave a Morningstar reversal here. So because you had this down move here. And then you had this red bar followed by a real body that closed below that first bar. And then the next bar pushed above 50% level of this bar. So it had, very, very good potential. It kind of pushed, kind of gave a hammer, and then it finally went inside, and then that inside day it broke to the downside. Now, I do think some upgrades are going to start to come in because they basically had some share repurchase stuff, increasing dividends, and it basically reclaimed all these ranges on Friday. So I think that no China deal type stuff is going to affect it. I would say it's going to affect a lot of these. This is very sensitive to that. So a lot of the Dows, like Boeing, is sensitive to it too. So Boeing is going to be nasty tomorrow. So we'll see. So see how far it pulls back. This cloud level is going to be really key. This 134 level. If it can hold that, it might get constructed because there is an open gap right here that it could fill eventually. So definitely eyeing that. And then it's got this longer term triangle, ascending triangle, that it might want to pop out of soon too. So definitely keeping an eye on that. TIFF, that's another good one. That's a fun one to trade. Let's see. Yeah, nice push on Friday. Got over big volumetric level here on the daily. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of coasting up, just following the cloud. Looks good as long as it stays above that 109, 109.25, 109.35. It might get some consolidation here, and then push again. So I think pullbacks are probably, buyable on it. So if it does gap down like everything else, if it ever does get to the cloud, this 103 level, it could look for a bounce at that too. So it could be interesting. Sagar, what's going on? Good to see you. How to trade VIX. Never traded and need some insight. It probably up tomorrow for sure. Yeah, it is. Honestly, Sagar, I don't recommend trading the VIX. It's very dangerous. A lot of people like to short the VIX. There was what was that one guy, that Target manager who decided to start a hedge fund of shorting the VIX. So you could do that. There's like VXX and there's options on it and all that stuff. I mean, I think you can get options on VIX itself? Yeah, I'm sure you can. Yeah, you can. So there's all sorts of options you could trade. I mean, it's good. You just got to be really careful because if it does end up like really spiking super duper high, it could really screw things up. But for the most part, you could try scalping options on it. It just moves really fast, and but a lot of people like to short it if it hits key levels, right? So it's probably going to pop high tomorrow. Here once it gets over the upper Bollinger Band on the daily, it's worth looking at shorting opportunities. But for the most part, I use it as a measurement, for the market, right? So as it's going up, right, typically the market's going down, so you could look for for opportunities there. The thing is it shorts really quickly, so the down moves on it really quick. So if you have calls on it, right, they could it can move before you could even get to set your stop, right? So it gets a little tricky to trade. So but here once it opened above the upper Bollinger Band right here, it tagged this cloud level, and then really kind of pushed to the downside. So here it did the same thing, got into the cloud, pushed to the downside. Here it might get over. I don't know what it's going to be over. It could be over the let's see, the VX is at 1635 right now, so I'm just assuming they're 1-to-1. We could be up pretty close to the 200-day moving average, so it might be shortable, at the open. We'll see, but then it could keep pushing, and I've seen it push. So it's tricky. It's tricky to trade. So you can see how these bars work. It's not super intuitive. It's more of like a gauge for me to see like what's gonna happen. It closes over the upper Bollinger Band, right? I'm gonna start to look for reversals, to the upside in the market. So we'll keep an eye on that. But there's the VXX and some other derivatives of it that you can mess with. So, Uzi, what's going on? Microsoft, yeah. Let's see. So Microsoft. Justin pointed out that Microsoft did close with a 60 anchor. So newsletter subscribers know this is a great. I trade these a lot at the open. If I take a trade at the open, I post it, and so we'll see how it handles this inside anchor bar here. This is the last 60-minute bar of the day. So a break to the upside, right, could be pretty strong, right? Could break out of the cloud and move up. Break down with the rest of the market. Depending on where it opens, right, could obviously could push a little bit farther to the downside. So, but Microsoft's been pretty strong, lots of positive stuff going on with it. So we'll see. It looks like the market's recovering a little bit too. So we'll see where it is at the open. But yeah, Microsoft, could be interesting. On the daily though, again, not quite a Morningstar reversal type pattern here, but all gaps were filled on this last gap up from earnings. So that is actually very constructive for it. So I do like this as a potential buying opportunity because here's your gap level right here, right? Let's see if I can get that. And okay, and then here, it's kind of closing below that. So I imagine it would kind of gap down a little bit tomorrow, but I would look for it to possibly spike, kind of out of that level right, and see. So let's see what it does tomorrow. See if it gets down to this 125 level, and then eventually, kind of pop its way out. That's a really good one to keep an eye on too. And it's coming up on uh, a a zone, right, where it can move. So these cycle brackets are kind of pivot brackets, So right here could correspond with a potential move on Microsoft. So I like that. And then thank you for bringing up BA, so I can finally pull up this chart. So Boeing has been obviously really interesting, right? Let's go back to the weekly and just kind of talk about it real quick. So this was your bearish engulfing week, right? This was before the disaster happened, right? So in a way, the technicals were really, gave a projection of potential short movement in the stock, and then once that happened, gap down very, very huge, right? Actually retraced about 50%, 61.8% of that range, right? Let me show you that real quick, right? That was your level. Let's see. Yeah, so it retraced 50% from the top, but from the close, it retraced, 61.8%. So it was a pretty decent opportunity. If you were caught in there, you could have got out in that, and then it gave you, kind of this, continuation shooting star bar, and then that failed, and you got a tail fail to the upside, gapped up, gap down, and then it looks like that gap has been filled, and then it kind of gave you this red doji day week last week, and then the daily has just been kind of real choppy through this triangle, and it looks like it's going to break down out of that triangle with a gap down tomorrow. So kind of big picture, let's go to the this chart here so you can see the triangle there. So this is a long-term pitchfork on Boeing, and so you can see we're kind of been around this median line level, and now it probably is going to gap down, and then it looks like there is a gap down here at 330.69. So I imagine it will probably test that tomorrow. So I don't know where we're going to gap, but let's say if we gap to like 345, I would look to possibly trade the 15 orb if it's not so huge to potentially break down and fill that gap. So that is possible. And then it could, if it wanted to, it could get down to this. The next support on this pitchfork is this kind of 318, 320 level. So anything's possible, right? So it's just bad news after bad news. And with the market and China news, this is very affected by Chinese trade news. So it could get pretty nasty. So that will definitely be one to watch tomorrow. Sagar, any short ideas after today's breaking news, like sectors and stocks that'll be hit more? Because personally, I feel like semis will be down more. Yeah, I mean, definitely, like any kind of trade, sensitive stuff. So like Boeing's definitely going to be a 15 orb watch list item tomorrow. So that's where we look at the first 15-minute bar, and then trade off of that. It could be a huge bar. I mean, you could do like a very, very low risk. You could just buy a put on it at the open potentially, because I imagine anybody who's been trying to go long this thing is going to be, dumping at the open, right? So that's one thing you could attempt. Just to look at again, CAT is another one that's affected. Pretty much anything. You're right, like the semis. So AMD, MU, right, is a big one that's affected by China news, and then of course just the S&P, right, is going to be interesting too. So a lot of us are going to look at just the S&P tomorrow probably. So that will be interesting to look at. So watch for new tariffs to be delayed tomorrow. Nice, Mike. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I didn't know I was going to. Yeah. So let's reverse it, right? Let's see. Shirley, what's going on? Glad you made it. Hello. Jay, hey. Hello. John Black, what's up, man? Good to see you. About to pull an all-nighter for AP tests. Oh, man, John. Awesome. Cool. Well, good luck, man. Once summer starts, going to watch all your vids. Great, man. That's great. So, yeah, good luck with all that. And you're starting at the right time, right? So this is a good time to really learn the market. It's crazy right now. We've had this huge, crazy move all the way since I think since you started the school year. When does school start? January or something? Oh no, it starts in the summer, right? So anyway, but it's where are we? Let's go here to the daily. Yeah, so I mean, you've seen right here, is just the move. Right, it said this huge bull run up all the way, 2015, 2016, right, and then things started getting pretty interesting in 2018. Then had this, last leg up, and then it's just been really, really crazy, right? So you're really learning stocks in a volatile market. So yeah, so definitely check out those videos and all that stuff, and hopefully just keep learning, right? And then just slowly but surely, you could work on options and paper trade, whatever the case is, and just start to get really good and learn some setups that really work for you, right? Because setups are key. So. And then managing your risk. Those are the most important things. So, Sagar, so a few more Chinese names will be hit. Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, good. Yeah, you've got your Baba and your Baidu and your IQ, right, are going to get hit too pretty hard. So maybe Neo too. Something crazy was going on Neo on Friday. I never ended up looking on it, but it had a lot of news on it. But yeah, I guess just some kind of rumor talk and all that. It's got earnings coming 5.7. Yeah, so this should be Neo's going to be interesting too to see. So see how that handles it. Osama, what's up? So what is the expected ES support level we are expecting? So ES, let's take a look. So ES, SPX was like 2,900, for the most part. But these were some key levels I had drawn. Where have I lost it again? So here. Just gonna kind of zoom in here. This is where we are now. It's holding this level pretty well. I know it's kind of nasty. So where are we? We are here. Okay, so that's at 28.93. All right, so 28.85 looks like, so you have to see that support here, support here, support here. So 28.85, it held that pretty well. If you can't hold that, 28.79, 27.80, 28.70 I would say is kind of like your ES kind of line in the sand right there. If that breaks down, it could get pretty nasty. So those are kind of things to think about. But right now it seems to be holding up a little bit. The YM 26,000 right is kind of, it looks like a key number too to see if that holds. But just draw your trend lines, right, and just kind of see where you're at, right. So short-term trend, right. We have our our levels, our floor pivot levels that we could trade. We kind of look there for a weekly, monthly, type stuff. Let's see. So, yeah, you've got your monthly level here is 28.80 on the ES. Your weekly level is 28.76. Your daily S3 is 28.72. And then after that, down there, right? So we'll see how that holds. Believe this turned into a bear flag right here. Nice shooting star pattern at a volumetric level. We'll see if that breaks down and then ends up retesting that 28.85 tonight. So that could be pretty interesting. So, Ayaz, what's going on? How are you? Good to see you. But yeah, Osama, on the SPX, on the S&P, 28.36 is going to be a key level. There's an open gap down there. If things get crazy tomorrow, that's going to be the key levels to look at. What is going on here? We lost the chart. It got confused. There. What am I? This is not even the right page. All right, there we go. Oh, I'm just zoomed out so much. Yeah, so this open gap right here, Osama, so that's that 28.36. So that's going to be a really key level to look at. So, but other than that, right, you've got other support levels. You just kind of see the pivots right here. So you've got 28.91, right, 28.73, right, and then finally that gap. So it could get nasty if it really wanted to. So anyway, gonna say NetFry, what's up? I think they'll hold 28.90 in SPX. Yeah, so 28.90. Where's that? Yeah, right there. So that's a good level to hold. So we'll see how they hold that. Yeah, so that would be good. X, please. Yeah, let's take a look. U.S. Steel. So yeah, that will be affected as well by any sort of tariff talk. But so far, right, it's if you just kind of base it off, where is it? So if you kind of base it off of these levels here, so gap down, gap back up. So big Morningstar reversal on U.S. Steel. If it were to get follow through, it could get pretty strong and get all the way up to this 20 level. But if it is like just damaged by tariff talk and it breaks down below these lows here, which is 14.16, it could get pretty nasty. So, and that is volumetric, and it gets below there. Next stop is 12.61. 11.42, and then it gets down to the $6 level. So we shall see on that. Could be pretty nasty, but we'll see if it just continues to hold up and it breaks over. And then we got a nice volume on Friday too. So Morningstar reversal possible, push the upside, gap fill up here around 19. So that could happen. So call saw BA, we just take a look at it. DE is another one, so that could be affected certainly. But definitely worth watching. So this was a fun newsletter subscriber trade of the week, which we caught here as it broke this downward, this downward trend, and then popped to the upside and filled this channel level. Isn't that interesting though? It just kind of ended up hanging out in this channel. So and then kind of broke down, retested this level, tested it again, and kind of back up. So we will see. But yeah, if it ends up just kind of failing at that 167 level, it could come back down to like 159, and it does have earnings coming up pretty soon, 517. So good old deer, good one. Uzi, yeah, let's take a look at Shop. So Shop was a fun one, amazing move after earnings. Shop is nonstop, right? So these bars here, that was your 15 orb level right to the upside. So hopefully as newsletter subscribers, you got to see that traded on Amazon on Friday for a nice move. There's kind of like an upward trend line. So this almost looks like, if we go back and do this, so remove drawing. So let's see what kind of angle this is. About 23 degrees, so we could potentially use that. This could be your bump right here. And then we'll see if it comes back to the trend line. It would have to, basically go through its, kind of gap levels, but then see how it handles this. If it were to break down through that level, then we could see a run to the downside. So a bump and a run to the downside. So with, volumetric levels at 178. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think it's pretty constructive after the gap. I don't think it's going to do anything like that, but it's worth seeing. But this is these were our 15-minute orbs that we had. This is the 15-minute orb we had after earnings, right? You can see I drew a range around this first 15-minute bar. That broke to the upside, so a nice move from 234 all the way up to 247, so over a 10-point move there. The next day we look at the 30-minute orb here. So here's your 30-minute orb level. That's your first 30-minute bar of the day. So that was about 245. All the way up to 252, so another 7-point move. And then it started to kind of calm down again the next day, right? It did have a big push at the open, then chopped, and then it looks like it gave a little bit more up here. So it's starting to get a little bit, kind of worn out, from what I could see at this point. But we'll see. We'll see. To me, it looks like maybe some consolidation, maybe pull back a little bit, but I can't imagine it going to, break through that line. But we'll keep this trend line up here and just keep our eye on it. So. Shirley, let's take a look. Yes, I would pick like 4 or 5 of these, but let's take a look at WY. So WY. Let's see. All right, there we go. So there's that fib fan line we looked at the other day. So it's going to be key for it to break out of that 2750 level, and that could work its way up to that 31. At which point your stuff is good. But just be careful. It's pivoting. If it's pivoting right here, then it might want to retest that. I don't know. Kind of work on this, kind of fib fan channel, type thing here down to like 23. So just be careful with that one. Let's go to STX. Seagate Technology. So we'll see how these guys are going to do with China stuff. So you kind of move down. Let's see. Let's see if we can find a recent top. I don't see like a high on here. There we go. So let's see. Let's just use this high and see. Let's fib fan that. There. So it has got above that, so that is good. And then we'll draw a pitchfork. Let's see if we can find let's get this low here. Could do that, but let's do that. Let's keep an eye on it. So, obviously it held. It's been holding these fib fan lines. So if it might pull down a little bit. It does have a gap below, but it could work its way out. There's a gap above too, right? This is kind of 52 level, so it could work, and test that kind of that 58 range, looking at your levels. So that does look interesting. MU, this will be very interesting to look at too. Again, it's pretty amazing to see how much it got beat up not too long ago. But let's go long-term pitchfork stuff here. So you can see, it followed this linear regression channel, right? This regression channel to the downside, right? Finally broke out of that channel, and it's kind of worked its way up. So that is bullish. I do see a triangle forming in here inside an upward channel as well. And so let's see how that handles that and breaks out. So it is looking like it's getting ready for a breakout over that 45 level. What do you have? 43. Yeah, I mean, if it could pop up through that 45, I think it could run. Let's go PPL, and then we'll look at TNA. PPL. No, we won't look at TNA. My wife won't like that. So we'll do SMH. So PPL. What are you looking at down there? Yeah, so let's see. So that's this, and let's see. Interesting fib fan. I don't think it's really going to show us much from here. It'll show us a little bit, but it might retest that. But it is looking kind of bull flag-ish. Here, ish. So if it could break through there, you might see that test of that volumetric, that 33 level. And if we could get through that, you could see further upside. And then SMH. Let's take a look. Yeah, looking bullish. Just careful of a gap right here, surely. Kind of this 109 range. Let's pitchfork this. Test mine out. Mouse clicks. There, it is holding this median line, so I do like that. Just be careful if it breaks below it. It could accelerate to that 109 level. But if it continues to consolidate and pops, then you've got a nice potential move. It could really move. So that looks interesting. So this is semiconductors. It'll probably gap down tomorrow, right? If it gaps down, we'll see how far it gaps down. But look for a gap fill, and if that gap fills there around like 109, it could push back up, right? But then it has work to do to get back to that median line level. So good stuff. Manoj, what's going on? Yeah, great stuff. Everybody surely posts great levels and great stuff. Always worth analyzing on your own. So, Osama, let's take a look at Netflix. So Netflix has been fun. I post this on the Twitter feed, the @True Bubblehead Twitter feed. So definitely, I've just got this global kind of fib fan line here. This line right here, this green dashed line, right? There's a gap right here from that big gap down back in July of last year, and so never got filled. It tried to, came back down, right? Tested, and now it's working its way back up. We've got this nice channel that it's working up, kind of pulled down a little bit after earnings and back in. Right now it's kind of working its way up. I think it closed with an inside day. No, not quite. So, but it did. This was an inside day, and it started to break that to the upside. So my guess is it'll probably gap down tomorrow. It might be a buying opportunity depending where it is. This 370 level looks like channel support. So if that can hold, that might be worth a potential swing to try to attempt to fill this gap here at 392. So that could be pretty interesting as well. And then SWKS, have they done earnings yet? Sorry, I missed it. Yeah. Wait. Yeah. Okay, there's a little slight beat on earnings, I guess, and then I don't know, it's probably bad guidance or something weird. It still has this gap to fill here on the last earnings. Was that gap ever filled? Yeah, it was. Okay, so still this gap down here is looking pretty nasty, but it did hold up pretty well. Let's see how that looks on the candlestick chart. So, gosh, that's just a tough bar to gauge. We'll see if it gaps down tomorrow, if it kind of hold this 82 area. That might be some decent support. Looks like there's a gap right here. So yeah, so that might fill that, and that would test the cloud and then work its way back up. So that looks pretty interesting. And then Apple buying NEO. Nice, NetFry. Cool. Some people were talking about Apple buying Tesla. So if they bought NEO, that would be solid. But good stuff. Thanks, NetFry. And thank you, Shirley. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Thanks for everybody for your support. Appreciate all new and all newsletter subscribers, and then just anybody, who all your support and all positive feedback that we get on Twitter and all that stuff. So the new Positive Trends newsletter went out this week and gives you lots of good ideas for staying on top of the market. So appreciate everybody for tuning in, and have a great night. And remember your risk first tomorrow so you can stay safe and stay in the game. And I will talk to you guys next time.